Hello, class. Today we're going to dive into our final project research paper, and I am going to show you how to complete your research paper and how to start your research paper, which is probably the first step. So let's pop into the classroom. I'm going to share my screen. Hang on just a second. Share screen. Okay, let's see if we can find the classroom. Here we go. No, that's not the classroom. You know what? Why don't we just jump right into the PowerPoint? Okay, so let's go up to the top here. This is under Module 2 in the Canvas Classroom. We'll go back to the Canvas Classroom, but if you go to modules, you'll see under Module 2, everything under there is about the research paper. So you'll have this video, you'll have the research paper rubric, you'll have example research paper, a very excellent one that you can take a look at. Please don't plagiarize it. You'll also have some other sources in there, like list of sociology journals, things like that. So module 2 is very important for the research paper, and that's what we're going to be focusing on coming up here. So let's go through this very wordy PowerPoint I put together. Not sure what I was thinking with all those words, but that's okay. So when you start this paper, keep in mind you're in a social stratification class. So you want to look at an inequality. You want to look at something that is, gosh darn it, not fair, right? And it's not fair on a systemic level. Okay, it's not just not fair in this classroom. Okay, it's large, it's macro. Remember, we talk about micro theories like symbolic interactionism, and those are awesome theories where you could go into a church and like study religion by looking at the different traditions and rituals and symbols. We're not doing that. Nope, that was intro to Soc. Now we're going bigger. We're going macro because social problems and inequalities are generally looked at from a macro perspective because they stretch across an entire society. I hope that makes sense. So if you were to use a micro theory, it would be because you were studying a small group of people. I don't want you to study just a small group of people. I want you to look at an issue, at a problem. In fact, let's call it a problem. This paper is about a problem, and it's a big problem. There's a lot of big problems to choose from, so don't feel like you're going to have any problem there. The problem's going to be you narrowing this down to exactly what you want to focus on. So first start very broadly and come up with a broad topic. I have some examples on here. I have immigration from Mexico. And then think about what is it about this topic that's so problematic? Well, a lot of people think that folks who come over here from Mexico without the proper paperwork, whatever, shouldn't be here. Not everyone thinks the same. That's why you're going to look at counter arguments. But why? Why do they not want these folks here? That's something you need to look into. So maybe we have the wrong idea about immigration and the many advantages that we actually have in this country and the way it keeps costs down. Okay, we basically are oppressing an entire race, and I'm talking about Mexican immigrants right now, so that we can use them as agricultural workers and pay them less than minimum wage, or use them in any other kind of construction industry and pay them less than minimum wage. And this is a huge problem, okay? Because it's not okay to do that to people. It's wrong. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, something that is a big problem. And it doesn't have to be a problem that everybody knows it's a problem, but it shouldn't be too obvious, okay? So you can't do, the United States is racist. Yes, it is. But I think we all know that, right? And of course, you'd want to narrow that down and say, you might say law enforcement, blah, 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 and something about racism. That would be closer, but that would be crim. All right. So some of you I know are double majors in criminology. Please don't write a criminology paper. I want you to write a sociological stratification paper. Okay. I want you to talk about the problem of an inequality. So The way to narrow down your topic is to come up with a claim and then have also a cause. So that's your thesis. So narrowing down your topic with a claim and then adding a cause. So for example here, immigration of undocumented workers from Mexico helps our economy. Claim, okay? Because it keeps costs down for the consumer and fills jobs in agriculture and service industries that are low pay. That's the cause. The why, okay? So the first part's the what, and the second part's the why. If this doesn't resonate with you, email me or you can set up a Zoom meeting and we can talk about this. But remember, there's two parts. There's the what and the why. And the what needs to be the problem, and the why is the reasoning for that problem. Okay, so here's some sample topics. Take a look at these. Some stuff on childhood poverty. This actually, I want to discuss just one point here. If you are going to do your paper on something to do with COVID, for example, how childhood poverty has increased drastically since the pandemic started, this is very true. How African Americans' health is being disproportionately affected by the pandemic. They're not getting the care they need. You can use these type of really timely topics, but you may have a harder time finding peer-reviewed journal articles. Now, don't let that stop you because there's other research out there. There's a lot of great government sites. There's a lot of great think tanks, and there's a lot of good stuff coming from like really good media. Okay. When I talk about really good media, I'm talking about the Atlantic Monthly, The Economist. Okay. The type of media that is not mass media. Okay. We don't want to go on Huffington Post and use something from there. But if you wanted to use what I call a periodical, which would be like the Atlantic or the New Yorker or any number of publications like that, just email me and run them by me and just make sure they're okay. And that way you won't be worried that you're not using a scholarly or academic source. So that's just for if you're doing something that is just very, very timely. And I love timely topics. So definitely delve into some COVID stuff if you want to. I mean, don't dive into COVID, just dive into the topic. Can't lose you guys. All right. So other good ones, poverty among the elderly is going to increase. It's going to be much worse because of the pandemic. There's so many topics that I just relate them all to the pandemic. So I'm not going to go through these because I'll just relate them all to COVID. All right. So, but take a look at the sample topics and then keep in mind that the range of topics is basically infinite. There are so many inequalities that you can study. I do ask that you stay in the United States. However, I've gotten some really great papers on more global topics. So if you want to do something more global, just email me and let's make sure that it's manageable. Sometimes when you try to cover global topics, it gets out of hand. So you may want to focus just on one country. Like right now, Hong Kong is having quite a crisis because of their huge amount of inequality in their society in Hong Kong. The folks who are the poorest live in these tiny tenements. They're called coffin homes. And the coronavirus is just rampaging through these tiny, tiny homes. And these are all people that are under the poverty level. So if that was something that you wanted to look at, the way that COVID is, how it's disproportionately affecting the lower classes in Hong Kong, that would be a really awesome topic. But definitely run something like that by me just so we can make sure that that topic's going to work. All right, so, and then your claim or thesis, as I said, is an argument, and it has to be something you can support with empirical research, okay? So it has to be something you can research and that you can find the research and go, okay, so this is what I found about this topic. There's an example here. Again, we've got a claim and a reason. TV violence can have harmful psychological effects on children. Oh, we've heard this a million times. That's the claim. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the claim. because they're constant exposure. It's the constant exposure to violent images that's the problem. That's the reason. So I hope that makes that a little more clear as the claim and then the reason. So you need both of those. Put that at the very end of your introduction. Okay. So if your introduction is one paragraph, that'll be one paragraph. That'll be at the end of the first paragraph. Okay. I really like introductions and conclusions. So do develop those. Okay. Those are worth points. In your introduction, I want you to make sure that you not only introduce the topic and give a little background, context, rationale, have your thesis in there, and you really need to make it clear why this problem is important and why we need to address it. That should be in your introduction. Bonus points if you have a blueprint in your introduction. That's what I'm really looking for, is in your introduction, it should lay out what you're going to do in the paper. Okay. When I read your introduction, I should then know what the rest of your paper is going to be about. So kind of provide that, don't kind of, provide that blueprint for me, okay, in the introduction, meaning set it up, set your introduction up so that you are not only putting in your claim and your reason, explaining why it's important, after narrowing it down from a large topic, you also want to, in there, explain what you're going to be doing in the paper. All right. I'm going to let you guys read this yourself, but this is basically how your introduction should be shaped. Starting broadly and going much more specific. It kind of looks like this. And that's crazy. But the top is the broad topic, and down here where my elbows are, that's your topic, okay? That's your problem that you're studying. So here's the basic blueprint for the process for the paper for this class. So you're going to start with a broad idea. You're going to come up with a question about this idea, right? Like, it doesn't have to be questions, but you should have questions about it because that's what makes it a problem. We always have questions about problems. And then I want you to start thinking about a claim you can make. And that would be the first part of your thesis. The second part of your thesis is give me a reason for that claim. Okay, so if you're going to claim that COVID is, the mortality rates for COVID are 3 times higher than mortality rates for white individuals who have COVID because Black individuals are not being cared for, are not receiving health care due to access and agency issues, something like that. Okay, that's coming up with a claim and a reason. And then the next thing I would do is go to the library. You don't actually have to leave your house, which is wonderful. Okay, you need to go onto the library website and then go to tutorials. Click on tutorials, and then you'll see sociology. Click on sociology, and then you'll see Caitlin Trakeham's beautiful face. She is our social sciences librarian. She will be happy to help you. If you need any help, just email her directly. She knows you're working on this project. And you can take a look at all of the databases that are specifically for the social sciences. They're located under that tab. Remember, go into the library website, click on tutorials at the top, then click on sociology, and then it will take you to the databases for sociology. If you have any trouble with that, please email Caitlin Trackham at the library or email me, either way, okay? Happy to help you navigate through the library. All right, so, and then the next thing you'll be doing is your literature review. So you've got your introduction, you'll have a literature review, and you'll have theory. And you're going to need evidence not just from peer-reviewed journal sources, but also other scholarly or academic sources. So you could use the census website, you could use the Pew Research Center, the Stanford Poverty Center. There's a lot of different government sites and think tanks that you can use that are scholarly sources, even if they aren't peer-reviewed journal articles. I want you to use both. And when you look at the instructions, you'll see that you need a mixture of both. So, and then one thing that's really important is down here at the bottom, you need to put in your paper. When I say acknowledge, I mean put it in your paper, counter arguments. Okay. Every argument has an argument on the other side, right? So if you're arguing for something, there's always an argument against it. If you, the topic you do needs to be able to be argued from two different sides. So if you pick a topic that you cannot make a counter argument against, then you need to go back and revisit your topic. So acknowledging the counter arguments is basically just saying, this is what other literature has found, you know, in contrast to this, and these studies that I've found, this is what other literature has found. And this is why I don't feel that this literature really explains, and then you go into what that counter argument doesn't really take into account. All right, I don't want you to worry too much about that, but I do want you to include a counter argument. And then in the conclusion, and please don't just stop your paper. I can't tell you how many times I've read a student paper and I'm like, just humming along and I'm going, oh, man, this is great. And I'm reading this awesome paper. And then it just stops. Write a conclusion, please. Okay. And your conclusion should clearly be a conclusion. It should circle back to your introduction, reiterate your main points, reiterate your thesis, add something in there about what exactly you found, and then just when I say wrap it up, that's what I mean. Say, and this is what you found, and then maybe say this would be something else that we would want to do more research on, right? Or you could add policy implications. If you take a look at some of the journal articles, you'll see in the conclusions they often will have policy implications of this, or they'll say there's a call for further research in this area because we don't really know X, Y, we only know Z. So that could be in your conclusion as well. And here, everything I just said is on this slide. So here's some common questions that I get a lot of emails about. And I want to just go ahead and clear them up now. Please use the first person, okay? In sociology and in criminology here at Flagler College, we use the first person in all of our papers. Now, I know that some of you are psychology majors, which I think is super awesome. It's part of our department. Psychology uses a third person a lot, okay? So I just want to make it clear. It's not only okay to use the first person, I'm requiring that you use the first person. And when you read some journal articles, you'll notice that in sociology, every journal article is written in the first person. I've never seen one written any other way. It's just very awkward to try to write in the third person. You don't need an abstract because your paper's not going to be long enough to need one. You do need a title page. You do need a reference page that's properly APA formatted, just like your title page. You need page numbers and you need a running header. So in other words, this should be APA formatted. You also need in-text citations for everything you put on your reference page. I expect to see a lot of in-text citations in this paper because of the literature review. So it's really important you hear me on this. Where it says you do need a reference page, every reference on there must have a citation in the paper that goes with it. Okay, you can't just throw something on your reference page and say you used it and not show where you used it. All right, and then moving on from there, be careful about kind of doing a data dump when you do this lit review. That's not what I'm looking for, or kind of like patchworking it together, as I said in here. What you want to do is make sure that you tell where the study came out of. A study conducted in 2016 at the University of Texas at Austin by Dr. Jennifer Melvin looked at, and then found that. Okay, so you want to say where the study's coming from because that's important. Okay, and you wanted to talk about the findings of the study, what the questions were, and what they ultimately found or didn't find. That's also very important, what they didn't find. So if you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, because you're going to have 4 peer-reviewed sources. If you want to do them each separately for your lit review, I'm fine with that. Okay, so you could do each of your peer-reviewed journals that you're doing the lit review on. You can either do them by theme, by topic, or you could just do them sequentially. Now, please don't put any long quotes in. Absolutely none. If you use a short quote, it needs to be something that you could not possibly do justice by paraphrasing it. I'm going to give you one of my favorite examples. Karl Marx said, "Religion is the opiate of the people." I don't think anyone could say that better or ever has. So you would quote that. I mean, you would directly quote that. But if you were talking about Marxist theory, then you would paraphrase. Okay? So keep in mind, it's better to paraphrase and use in-text citations than to use quotes unless you could not possibly do justice to the quote. If I see a bunch of quotes in your paper, I'm going to assume that you were rather lazy about writing it. Okay, because it's harder to paraphrase and cite than it is to just throw in a bunch of direct quotes and not explain them. Okay, so stay away from the direct quotes. I want to know what you think after reading this. After reading an article, I want to know what you think. I don't want quotes from the article. Okay, also make sure every single paragraph has a topic sentence and supporting sentences. I shouldn't have to put this on there because this is not a composition class and you've already learned this, but I get a lot of papers that are all one paragraph. I will dock you if you do that. I will dock you points because that is, you guys know better than that. And very few people do this, but I'm just putting it out there for those couple of people who might forget that paragraphs are your friend. All right, so some common errors that students make: not writing a rough draft. Guys, I have been a professor at Flagler College now for 6 years. And I don't think I've had more than 10 people write a rough draft and show it to me before the papers due. If you write a rough draft and you get it to me at least 10 days before the papers due, I will give you feedback free of charge. Yes. But if you wait until the 11th hour and want me to look at your paper, it's not going to happen. Okay? I'm really serious about that. If you get me your paper within 10 days, you email it to me and it is done. Okay? I don't want to see a piece of your paper. I don't want to see some crazy rough draft. It's like all over the place. You send me the paper you intend to turn in within 10 days. I will give you feedback and you can go back and you can make changes and edits and then you can turn it in. There's no reason you shouldn't make an A on this paper knowing that. Okay, that is such a valuable resource. The 10-day rule is very important because if you send it to me 7 days before, I'm going to tell you no. And I'm not going to do that to be a jerk. I'm going to do that because I'm teaching 3 other classes and doing a million other things. And unfortunately, I'm not going to have time. I can't guarantee you that I would have time if you give me that many days. So give me 10 days, then you can get feedback. Like I said, you got to turn in the entire paper and email it to me. All right. Another common error, not editing or proofreading. I find it really hard to believe that somebody could turn in a paper they didn't proofread. But I realized that if you wrote the paper the night before it was due, you probably didn't proofread it. So when I'm reading through papers and I can tell one's not been proofread, I know that the person did it at the last minute because why would you not read your paper? If you write something, you need to read it. You need to read it and make sure it flows, make sure it makes sense, make sure everything is coming together. So I'm going to tell you my experience. This happens every year. I work with Dr. Steverson a lot. A lot of you know Dr. Steverson. And when I write a publication, I write a manuscript, I edit it 5 or 6 times. I usually have to put it away for a few days because I have to forget about it, and then I'll edit it, and I'll do that a few times, and then I'll send it to Dr. Steverson, and he'll edit it. And then he'll send it back to me, and I'll, like, look at his what he thinks and make some more edits, and then I might send it to Dr. Beale in criminology because he and I work together, and I'll have him take a look at it, because the more eyes you get on your paper, the better your paper is going to be. Okay. So have someone else read your paper. Read your paper out loud. Reading your paper out loud is really helpful to find out if your flow and your structure and your grammar um, really go together. So, but at any rate, definitely proofread your paper and do some editing. Okay. Um, you definitely appear like swap papers, do peer reviews, read each other's papers. All right. The last few slides here are about APA. And you can take a look at these on your own. I have a few examples of how you can do citations either at the beginning of the sentence or at the end. That's mainly what this is about, is your APA citations. Those are in the text. And then this is your APA reference page, and this is how it should be formatted. Remember that the OWL Purdue website, OWL, Purdue University, they have a really good APA website. And we also have APA resources in the library. We have a handout on APA. We also have APA help on the library website. You can talk to Caitlin Tracom, our social sciences librarian, about APA. The Flagler Learning Resource Center would be such a great place to send your paper and get some help with APA. Even those of you who've used APA before I think, would really benefit from using the Writing Center and having them take a look at your paper. Now, keep in mind that you just want them to look at it, the structure and format, okay, not the content. They're not sociologists. So go ahead and if especially if you're weak on APA, please use the Writing Center. That's what they're there for. And you're already paying for the Writing Center. So take advantage of that and really use that opportunity to get feedback and be able to turn in a paper that is properly APA formatted. I do want to make a note. The 7th edition of APA just came out. We have been using the 6th edition. I am fine with you using the 6th edition or the 7th edition. Everything you see in this PowerPoint that's APA formatted is going to be 6th edition because I'm still using the 6th edition and reading the 7th edition. So it's up to you which edition you want to use. But just be sure and stay consistent. Okay, that's the end of this PowerPoint, which I will post this video to the class. And I hope this helped you with thinking about your topic assignment, which is coming up. You'll be turning in your topic, your thesis, and if you click on the assignments, it has all this. I believe your research question, and I want at least one of your sources because I want to make sure that you have a good handle on how to find a good peer-reviewed source in a sociology journal in the library. So click on that topic assignment and you'll see exactly what I'm asking for in that. And then go through module 2, take a look at all of the materials. You should not write this paper without the rubric open next to you, because when I grade the paper, the rubric will be open. The rubric will be open on my computer right next to your paper. Okay, and I will grade your paper using the rubric. And I will actually show you where you lost points from the places in the rubric. Okay, so this is very much, there's going to be no mystery about your grade. It'll be very clear. So use the rubric to write your paper. And that way, when I use the rubric to grade your paper, you're going to make a really great grade. All right, if you don't use the rubric, it's going to be problematic because there's things in the rubric that you absolutely have to do. And if you have it next to you, you'll know. And about 30 points of this paper is for formatting, is for structure, style, getting writing in the right person, in the first person, all of those kinds of things. So Take a look at the rubric and use it to write your paper. If you have any questions, of course, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Here I am. All right, so if you have any questions about your paper, please either set up a Zoom meeting with me or email me. Just reach out to me. We can even talk on the phone. I know it's a little more difficult with an online class, learning from videos. So I am here for you. And this paper is a big part of your grade. So I want you guys to get started on it right away. That's why your topic assignment is due coming up very soon. You'll see the due date on it if you go under modules number 2. Okay, I hope this was helpful. Um, I wish we were in the classroom, but we're not, and we are doing the best we can. So have a wonderful day. Let me know if you have any questions or if you want to run your topic by me. Shoot me an email. Happy to look at it. Okay, have a great day.